Hey everybody, it's Greg Harrelson here. Of course, it is that time. It is Tuesday at 11:30 Eastern time, and that's when we do our live session on Real Geeks on the Facebook page. And today we are going to talk about something that I call the three phases of buying. So I'll kind of walk you through. I've got my notes here next to me. I'm going to just kind of walk you through what I look at as being the process that buyers go through before making their final decision and writing a contract with us. Most of us use Real Geeks with the intention of cultivating, either generating new buyer leads and leads for ourselves, as well as using the tools to like workflows and advanced search filters to nurture our database, push notifications and whatnot. But what I wanted to talk about, because I just feel like there's a disconnect. People kind of like, sometimes, in my opinion, as an industry, we make assumptions that maybe we shouldn't make. So you'll determine that by the end of the call today. But I want to start off by saying the subject is going to be the three phases of buying. I'm going to walk you through the process that I believe buyers go through before they write contracts with us. I'll start off by saying this. A lot of you have probably saw a picture that was floating around Facebook, or a caption that was floating around Facebook. Hold on one second. Yes, ma'am.
Nobody can hear you.
Okay, cool. So let me see if I can. It sounds like we have some issues on audio. So let me see if I can figure that out.
Sure. Nobody's saying anything. Oh, Sean says that he can hear you, so maybe it's just me. I don't know why.
Okay. Okay. So okay. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, everybody, for saying that. Thank you. Okay. So let me just start again. So what I was mentioning to you is there was a guy, like a little saying, or somebody posted something that it caught my attention. And that was, Zillow sold 150 million leads to real estate agents last year, but there were only like 5 million sales, or maybe 5.5 million sales. And in that Facebook post, the purpose of that post was kind of like a little bit of a slam on Zillow for how many leads that they have sold. Now, if you think about it, if you took realtor.com, you took Movado, you took all these lead sources, and you take our website. So I think about how many leads you just generated on your website. There's probably 1 billion leads generated a year in real estate, but only 5 million, 5.5 million sales. As a matter of fact, it's likely to be under 5 million sales this year. So why in the world would all of these buyers keep signing up for website after website after website? Why? Well, I kind of have an opinion on this. The reason why buyers keep signing up on another website and another website and another website is because a lot of times buyers are being ignored by the real estate agent. Now, it doesn't seem like we as agents would want to ignore our leads. Okay. So I don't believe, like from a business standpoint, nobody would agree that that would make any sense. So we must must be making some assumptions about the leads that would cause us to ignore them. Because if we thought that they were paychecks, we would pick them up. We must be viewing the leads as something other than paychecks. Now, I could probably never describe all the different things or different ways that we as individual agents could perceive leads. But what I have done is I've identified that through the buying process, there's three phases. And I have also identified, remember, I deal with thousands of leads every month, and I deal with hundreds of real estate agents in my own operations. So all of this information is coming from experience. This is not a book that I read. I don't believe anyone else has explained it this way. If they have, then fantastic. We think alike, but I've never heard it in coaching. And so this is all stuff that's just, I've learned through many, many years, trial and error, that there's 3 phases that buyers go through. I'm going to give you those 3 phases. I'm going to share with you, like, how do you know when somebody's in that phase versus another phase? How would we know if somebody's in one phase versus another? What are they saying that would tip us off? And then how do we know technically? How could we look in our CRM and determine what phase they're in? So let me go through this because it'll take me a couple minutes. Phase number 1, actually, there's no order, but I guess it is. The first phase that people go through is what I call the dreaming phase. So there's the dreaming phase, there's the exploratory phase, and then there's the buying phase. There's the dreaming phase, the exploratory phase, and the buying phase. I'm going to step away from real estate for a minute, and I'm just going to, talk about something different, which is maybe boats. It's a nice summer day. The weather's beautiful. It's like, man, wouldn't it be nice to have a boat? That's the dreaming phase. That's how it starts. In Myrtle Beach, a lot of you know I'm in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina market. I'm actually throughout multiple markets in North and South Carolina, but I live in Myrtle Beach, and we get a lot of people that move down here from the north, and we get phone calls, we get leads, and we're like, hey, I'm just kind of curious, why are you thinking about moving down to Myrtle Beach? Well, we're just thinking about moving south, get out of the harsh winters. Moving south. Okay, good. Well, we're in Myrtle Beach. Have you visited Myrtle Beach? Well, no, not yet. We're just not sure if it's going to be the Carolinas or maybe Florida. See, as I'm listening, I'm understanding that's a dreaming phase buyer. That buyer is in the dreaming phase. Notice I said that buyer. They are a buyer in my mind, but they are in the dreaming phase. You see what they said, or you hear what they said? Thinking about moving south, get away from the harsh winters, not sure if it's going to be the Carolinas or Florida. They're just dreaming right now. Now, what ends up happening with that particular buyer, though, is eventually they go down to Florida and they come down up to the Carolinas, and all of a sudden they're like, we really like the Carolinas. Like 3 months later, we call them up and we really like the Carolinas. We're not going to Florida. That's a little too hot. We kind of like the weather in the Carolinas. Myrtle Beach seems to be the spot that we like. I'm just kind of curious. I mean, what are the schools like in South Carolina? What are the schools like in Myrtle Beach? Hey, I'm just kind of curious. We're in New Jersey and property taxes are really high. What are the property taxes like in Horry County? That's exploratory phase. They're asking something a little bit more specific about our county. Before, they were saying, I want to get out of the cold, harsh winter somewhere South Florida or the Carolinas. See how broad that was? That's dreaming. But then when they go check out a few areas, they like narrowing it down. I'm going to narrow it down to Myrtle Beach. This county, Myrtle Beach and the surrounding towns, all within this county. Hey, tell me a little bit more about the county. That's an exploratory phase conversation. Then there's the buying phase. What does the buying phase look like? The verbal clues for buying phase? The verbal clues for the buying phase is this. Hey, we really like Carolina Forest, which is an area in Myrtle Beach. They like Myrtle Beach, and now they've picked an area. We really like Carolina Forest. It seems like the school systems are pretty good. How would they know that? Because they've already been through the exploratory phase. It seems like that's where we would want to put our children into the schools. That's the schools we want our children to go to. I'm just kind of curious. I mean, like, if when we make offers, are sellers starting to negotiate a little bit, or is it still like multiple bids and being sold over full price? That's a buyer phase question. Hey, I'm just kind of curious. What would the property taxes be on this home? That's a buying phase question. What is the homeowners association dues per month or yearly? That's a buying phase question. They dreamers don't ask about homeowners association dues for one community. In the exploratory, they may say, hey, are there any communities without HOAs, without homeowners association dues? That could be an exploratory question. But in the dreaming phase, they do not say, what are the dues for this one neighborhood? That's a buying phase question. The reason I bring this up is this. When we ignore the buyer, when they're in the dreaming phase or the exploratory phase, when we ignore them in the dreaming phase or the exploratory phase, be assured they will ignore you when they get to the buying phase. And that's why I started the conversation about these lead companies. Like, again, that one particular thing that I Facebook post was slamming Zillow for how many leads that they're selling real estate agents compared to how many sales are made in the country. And it was all about how Zillow was bad because they're taking all this real estate agents' money. Look, we can all have our own opinions on Zillow. That's not where I'm going with this, but that was the nature of that one post. My feedback would be the reason why Zillow can sell all those leads is because all these leads that are in the dreaming and the exploratory phase are being ignored by the buyer. And when you ignore the lead will sign up again on another portal and get sold again. And then it goes to another agent, and the agent finds out that they're in the exploratory phase, and the agent's like, well, that's not a good lead. So they ignore that buyer lead, and the buyer lead says, well, I need some attention. So they go back to that portal, sign up again, and it gets sold over and over and over again because it was ignored. I understand why we sometimes ignore them. Sometimes we ignore them because we tell ourselves we don't have the time to go out and we can't spend time with dreamers. We don't have enough time to follow up with them for a year. And that, I understand it. Very valid. But remember, what brings us together is Real Geeks. Real Geeks is a tool. It's automation. It's a tool that we put on our tool belt that helps us follow up with these people for long periods of time. So all the dreamers, yes, you may not have time to call them every single week because they're dreaming. They wouldn't even pick up the phone if you did that. But make sure that they're getting a market activity report, a sold report. Make sure that they're getting property notifications. Make sure you have a saved search saved for them so they're getting alerts. Make sure that they're in a workflow. Maybe you don't have a workflow communicating with them once a week. They're in the dreaming phase. Maybe once a month for a dreaming phase buyer is plenty for a workflow. An exploratory phase, maybe have communication with them every 2 to 3 weeks. But a buyer, make sure there's communication with them constantly, at least a minimum of every week, if they're truly in the buying phase. And when we use the automation in this way, now we can manage a much larger database. So we no longer ignore the dreamers or the explorers. We still cash in the lottery tickets of the buyer, the people that are the buyers, those good commission checks. Let's cash in on those. But don't we want to cash on all the others? Now, how do we know that the dreaming and the exploratory buyers are really good? How do we know that they're buyers? Because we make them sound like, we act like they're just low quality people that we don't need to spend time with. But when we go back through our database a year later, we see that just as many people bought from our competition, actually more people bought from our competition than bought from us in our own database. So it says we had possession of them, but they bought through somebody else. Why? My opinion is we should all accept responsibility because we ignored them. Yeah, but Greg, I don't have time. I understand it. That's why we have Real Geeks or whatever CRM you're using. Follow Up Boss or whatever you're using. The whole purpose is to be able to manage a larger database. Now, I talked to you about a lot of verbal clues. Let's talk about non-verbal clues, more of a technical clue, and this would be looking in your CRM. So when we look in our CRM, okay, and we say, okay, we look at the search patterns. Now, the buyer is searching anywhere. The buyer is searching anywhere from, most of you won't know this geographical area, but Calabash, North Carolina, or to South Florida. Now, in your database, you wouldn't see that probably, but let's just say in your CRM, you would see that they were searching property from like one extreme outer area of your market to the next extreme outer area of your market to another extreme out in the other direction of your market. They're searching land, they're searching condos, and they're searching homes. They're searching $1 million price range and $200,000 price range. They're searching the entire market. They're searching multiple price ranges that don't even seem to correlate, and they're searching every product type. 2-bedroom houses with garages, condos with no garages, lots at 75,000, lots on a lake at 600,000, $4 million homes. That's a dreaming phase buyer lead. It's okay. They're going through the process. It's kind of like the person that's in the dreaming phase of buying a car. They're looking at vans, trucks, SUVs, 2 doors, 4 doors. They're looking at Ford, Chevy, Porsche. They're looking at everything. They're in the dreaming phase. Are they considering a car? Yes. Do they know what they want? Have no clue. They're at the early stages. So in a technical sense, you can see based on what they're clicking through, what they're saving, what they're looking at. By the way, the dreamers don't save a lot. They don't save favorite properties as much as the exploratory and the buyers do. Because there's so many. They're just dreaming. That's how we know. So you want to make sure that you're communicating with them in a certain frequency using workflows and future activities, scheduling future activities, etc. Now, in the exploratory phase, some of the technical clues look like this. They're searching for one city, but they've narrowed it down to a few areas within that city. So again, I'll use my city, Myrtle Beach. Well, Myrtle Beach, they may in my particular area, Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach, let's just say that they're searching those 2 cities, but within each one of those cities, they're searching Barefoot Resort, which is an area of multiple neighborhoods, and they're searching Carolina Forest, which is an area, multiple neighborhoods. In both areas, there's similar price range. In all the neighborhoods, there's similar product types. Now, all of a sudden, I'm seeing, instead of searching Calabash all the way to Polly's Island, which is a huge span of distance, they're searching in a smaller range of distance. The product type is all homes, no longer land, all homes in a similar price range. They're an exploratory buyer. They're like narrowed it down now. So you can look in your CRM and your IDX and you can see all that. We can see what they're searching. Like, make sure you don't ignore that feature of your website. Now, on the buying phase, technical clue, remember the verbal clue is, hey, what are the interest rates now? I'm just what do you think about this community? Hey, are sellers coming down a little bit off their asking price, or are they still selling for over full price? Those are all buying phase clues, verbal clues. A technical clue for somebody that's in a buyer phase is they're favoriting multiple properties in the same neighborhood and the same price points. You can just tell that they've kind of narrowed down their search criteria and they're favoriting more and more properties because they favorite them so they can go back to them over and over again and compare them to other properties. They favorite them because they don't want to forget this one and then have to go through the thousands that are on the market and find that one again to compare it with another one. So they favorite it for that. That's what a buyer does versus a dreamer versus an explorer. So I thought I would explain this to you today because where I've said this over the last couple of years, many times, and sometimes I get pushback for the things that I say because I'm very opinionated. When it comes to real estate, I do have an opinion, and I have a strong opinion because I have a very big sampling of data that I'm constantly looking at from a daily basis. I'm dealing with hundreds of agents in my own operations, coaching them. So I'm hearing so many things. So I feel like I've got a good sampling of information to come to my conclusions. And this is the type of coaching that I'm sharing with them. Of course, we're doing a much deeper coaching within our company because I have more time with them. But one of the things that I've said that's been a problem for our industry is we've made a mistake, and we tend to look at lead quality based on how fast they're going to convert versus their willingness to buy. And when we're in the mentality of that's a bad lead because they're in the dreaming phase, we end up losing so much business because of that mentality. And that's the mentality that I think our industry has. In other words, our industry is expecting a lottery ticket to show up in their email and just automatically buy from them. But for any of you that are listening to this, mark my word, with very rare exceptions, your next lead that buys with you in the next 30 days. So if you get a lead, the next lead that you get that buys from you in the next 30 days, be assured that was a lottery ticket. Now, why do I say that? Because multiple agents had the same lead, but they ignored the lead because when they had it, that lead was in the dreaming phase. And the next agent ignored the lead because they were in exploratory phase. And that lead kept signing up for somebody else's website. And you hit the lottery. They just hit your website and they say, look, I just want to buy this property. Or look, hey, we've narrowed it down to Carolina Forest. Can you show me properties? That's a lottery ticket. It's unpredictable and it's hard to duplicate. What's predictable and duplicatable is that all buyers will go through these three phases. So set up your systems to manage the relationships through the different phases, and we will lose a lot less of the opportunities that we have floating around in our database. Now, there's a lot of things that's coming to the end. I'm looking at time right now. And so I'll kind of wrap it up here. But there are ways to manage these phases, and you can use advanced search filters. Like you could use advanced search filters. You create an advanced search filter in your CRM that automatically populates a list of all buyers that have been on your website, have viewed property in the last 30 days, but have not favorited property in the last 6 months. Okay, they viewed properties in the last 30 days, but they haven't favorited anything. Tells me they're probably not in the buying phase, but they may be in the dreaming or the exploratory phase. So then make sure that when you have that, then have a workflow that's geared to communicate. If you think that they're in exploratory phase, have a workflow that's geared to send out a message to them. Hey, a lot of times people are interested in schools, property taxes, insurance rates. If there's any information that you would like to know, please reach out to me. Like knowing that that's what they want to know in the exploratory phase. So if you see, hey, these people are in the exploratory phase, then make sure that your workflow is consistent, the messaging is consistent with where they are. Meet them where they are. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, this real estate's so helpful. They won't bounce off to another website. But when you see that they're starting to favorite properties, then you may have an advanced search filter, been in my website searching for X amount of times, but have favored properties within the last 30 days. You may want, or last 14 days, when they start favoriting properties in the last 14 days, you want to call them because they could be in the buying phase. And then you've got those people that are non-responsive. They don't respond to your emails or texts or calls. They're probably in the dreaming phase. They don't need anything at the moment. So set up your workflows to just randomly touch base from time to time. Have them on some call schedule from time to time. Don't just completely ignore, because they bounce off and they become a buyer for the next agent or one of the next two agents, because usually they bounce to 3 or 4 different agents because there's 3 different phases. That's why they do that. All right. Well, good. If you have any questions, feel free. Listen, a lot of you, I didn't have time and would not have time and to go through the advanced search filters on how you can really set this up to match the phases that the buyers go through. But I do have a program called Real Geeks Mastery. I think it was put into the comments, Real Geeks Mastery Coaching. That coaching is something that I do. I do a much deeper dive in how we work our systems, how we identify opportunities within our systems, close more deals. So that's Real Geeks Mastery. Feel free to check it out. As a matter of fact, I've got there, you could just go to rgmastery.com and get some information. There's no contract. It's a small monthly fee compared to other coaching programs. I'm on about 75%, and then I let my staff be on because I got very technical skill. They're very skilled technically about the system. So they're also involved in coaching you on how to really work the Real Geek system. So if that's interesting, go to rgmastery.com, check it out. Hope you'll join. In the meantime, you can count on me being here every Tuesday at 11:30 Eastern with another tip. Bye, everybody.